Hi, I'm Bob. From today, we will talk about another market structure, monopoly. A monopoly firm is the only supplier of a good that has no close substitute. A monopoly firm is a price maker. It can set its price. It's not a price taker like a perfectly competitive firm. The demand curve a monopoly faces is the market demand curve. Because the market demand is downward sloping, a monopoly firm doesn't lose all its sales if it raises its price, unlike a competitive firm. The fundamental cause of monopoly is the barriers to entry. A monopoly firm is the only seller in the market because other firms cannot enter the market and compete with it. Three main factors contribute to the barriers to entry. The first one is the monopoly resources. A key resource required for production is owned by a single firm. Take our ice cream firm as an example. If a key ingredient for ice cream is only owned by our ice cream firm, and no other firms can get the ingredient, then only our ice cream firm can produce ice cream cones and becomes the monopoly firm in the ice cream market. But in practice, monopolies rarely arise for this reason, because the ownership of a key resource of a product is usually not exclusive. The second source of the limited entry is the government regulation. The government sometimes gives a single firm the exclusive right to produce some good or service. The patent and copyright laws are two important examples. A patent is an exclusive right granted for an invention. The right excludes others from making, using, or selling the invention. Generally, the term of a new patent is 20 years in the United States. Copyright is a form of protection provided to the authors of original works, including literary, dramatic, musical, artistic, and certain other intellectual works, both published and unpublished. The patent and copyright laws encourage firms to engage in creative activity, but the laws also allow the monopoly firms to charge a higher price. The third type of monopoly is the natural monopoly. One firm can produce the total market output at lower cost than several firms could if it is a natural monopoly. An example of a natural monopoly is the distribution of water to the residents in a small town. A firm must build a network of pipes throughout the town, which is the fixed cost. The graph shows that a single firm's average total cost falls as output increases for all levels of output. In other words, there are economies of scale over the total market output. If two or more firms will compete in the provision of this service, each firm would have to pay the fixed cost of building a network, which raises the cost of providing a given quantity of water. Thus, the average total cost of water is lowest if a single firm serves the entire market. The other firms have no incentive to enter the market. We have learned that a competitive firm maximizes its profit in the short run using a two-step procedure. A monopoly firm also maximizes its profit in the short run using the same procedure. First, the firm determines the output at which the firm makes the highest possible profit. Second, the firm decides whether to operate at that output level or to shut down. This graph shows how a monopoly firm chooses an output level to maximize its profit. A monopoly like any other firms, maximize its profit by operating where its marginal revenue is equal to its marginal cost. A firm's marginal revenue curve depends on its demand curve. Its demand curve is downward sloping. The following shows the relationship between the demand curve and the marginal revenue curve. Suppose the demand function is Q and the inverse demand function is P. The firm's total revenue is P times Q. The marginal revenue is equal to dr over dq. Using the product rule of differentiation, we can write the monopoly's marginal revenue function as two terms. The first term is the price, and the second term is the slope of the inverse demand curve, which is negative because the inverse demand is downward sloping. So, for any given positive quantity, a monopoly firm's marginal revenue is less than the goods price. In other words, a monopoly's marginal revenue curve is downward sloping and lies below its inverse demand curve. For linear demand, like the curve on this graph, the marginal revenue curve slope is twice as that of the inverse demand curve. A linear inverse demand function is P equals minus AQ plus B. A and B are positive. Total revenue is price times quantity. It could be written as a function of quantity Q. The marginal revenue is equal to dr over dq. You can see that the slope is 2a, twice the size of the slope of the inverse demand. Now we have the monopoly firm's marginal revenue curve. The firm's marginal cost curve and average total cost curve are like those we have discussed in previous videos. Like any firms, a monopoly firm maximizes its profit by choosing a monopoly quantity where its marginal revenue is equal to its marginal cost, which is Q1 in this graph. It then uses the inverse demand curve to find the price that will induce consumers to purchase that quantity. The monopoly price is P1. Notice that the monopoly price P1 is higher than the marginal revenue and the marginal cost at Q1. This is different from the competitive case where the price is equal to marginal revenue and marginal cost at the optimal output level. The monopoly profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. The total revenue is price P1 times quantity Q1, which corresponds to the shaded rectangle area. The total cost is the average total cost times quantity, which corresponds to the smaller shaded rectangle. The difference between them is the monopoly profit. The monopoly firm here makes a positive profit. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.